Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast, and good morning to those following from the Central Time Zone and the Pacific Time Zone. Those who are following from Israel, Europe, and parts abroad, we want to wish you a good evening. Today, we're incredibly blessed to have Major General Nadav Padan really to give us an insight, his analysis, and a context as to what's been happening over the last 5 days, 6 days in Syria. We know that over 1,000 people have been killed, and many of them in a horrific, brutal, vicious way. And most of those killed were Druze Syrians. There's been ISIS, there have been these Islamic various violent groups, the Bedouins who've been attacking the Druze in southern Syria. But to give us a context, to give us where this came from, where this could be going, we're incredibly blessed and honored to have Major General Nadav Padan share with us.
Thank you, Steve. I would like to take one step backward and just speak about the situation from a bird's view, and then drill down and elaborate more about what's going on in Syria. So we have to remind ourselves that we're still in an ongoing war in 7 arenas. So every second day or week, there is a pump of news story, which is a part of the component of this multi-layered system we're dealing with, and we have to put things in context. So while we're speaking about what's going on in Syria, we have to remember that we're still dealing with Iran, we're still dealing with the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria and Gaza Strip, and with Lebanon, and with the Houthis in Yemen. But let's start from the head of the snake. When we're speaking about what's going on in Iran right now, so Iran trying to recover from the defeat of the 12-day war, dealing with two different arenas from the Iranian perspective. The inside arena, which criticized the regime and asked questions about how come you promised us all over the year to defeat Israel and you didn't do that good. Didn't do that good during the 12-day war. And the attempt to Iran to survive, and to do that, they have to take off all the sanction and open their economic relation, mostly with Europe and with the free world. So you can see different kind of wording, different kind of discussion within Iran, two parallel discussions that sometimes you have a hard time to understand how the declaration within Iran connect to the one to Europe and to other places. And the situation is pretty complicated in Iran right now. You can see the amount of harassment, the amount of checkpoint all over the state of Iran. There is a lot of inside friction, while the Iranian tried to reach to a kind of negotiation with the European country of France, Germany, and Britain about the inspection and about the nuclear facilities in Iran. That goes right now. The European Western countries are willing to compromise and help the Iranian and try to convince it to go to the right side. It's definitely under the inspection of the US, and in the end, Europe won't do anything regarding the sanction without the bless of the US. I mean, when the simple question, who do you want to have a relation with, the US or Iran, will put on the table, that the answer is pretty clear. When I go from Iran to Lebanon, I would say that, generally speaking, the ceasefire agreement are kept. While Israel keep blocking or preventing the Hezbollah from rebuild itself, specifically at the south part of Lebanon, but not only. And generally speaking, I would say that Hezbollah is still a very strong force within Lebanon, but it's getting weaker and weaker every day. And by the way, what's happened in Syria, I'm going to elaborate about it in a second, encourage the minorities within Lebanon in a way that they think that once they have friction with Hezbollah, maybe like the way Israel is supporting the Druze in Syria, they will come to support us. So that's from the perspective of what's going on in Lebanon. I mean, that what happened in Syria, from the perspective of what's going on in Lebanon, is also kind of positive thing. Speaking about Syria, again, let's take one step backward and and explain what is this phenomena that calls Syria. Syria, like many other countries in the Middle East, is a creation of agreement between superpower, between France and Britain. And Syria, as we know it today, established somewhere between the war in 1924. Those days, it was including Lebanon, by the way, big Syria. And then Lebanon separate from what we know today as the border of Syria, but Syria was there, and today, group of minorities, group of tribe that didn't develop, not under Assad and not today, tight relations. The Assad regime, which was a secular regime that speaks about national Arab country, could create bridges between communities. The discussion were under the Ba'ath Party that every tribe that speaks Arabic is an Arab. So Syria, it's not a Muslim country, but Arab country. When the Julani forces took over Damascus, the title and the discussion changed from secular kind of realpolitik discussion to religious discussion. And from that perspective, all the friction that were hiding all over the years were pumped up between the Sunni, the Shia, between the Sunni and the Shia, which are Muslim, to the other minority like the Alawis, the Druze, the Turk, and other. When we're speaking about the Druze and the Alawis, from that perspective, they're what the Arab call tahfir, which is infidels. And there are enemies like Jews, like Christians. At the very beginning, the regime, or I cannot call it the regime, the forces of Giuliani butcher part of the minority. We all know about the 1,000 Alawis that have been butchered close to the shore at the west side of Syria. And all over the last month, from the time that Giuliani took over, there is an ongoing friction between the minorities, including hundreds of terror attacks between themselves, between the Kurd and the Sunni, between Alawis and the Giuliani force, and even like radical group within what used to be the Giuliani force, and now they are kind of opposition within the coalition, fought against Russian and killed Russian soldiers at what remained from the Russian bases within Syria. So there is an ongoing friction. We talked about it several times. So once Giuliani walked with his suit and showed himself at the West Wall, is dealing with very fragile kind of a situation within Syria. So he didn't been able so far to create stability in the way it's been presented at the US and at the Western world. He's still fighting for it. Not to mention that 30% of the country are Kurd. They're not really cooperate. They have kind of fragile ceasefire agreement. And not to mention the amount of superpower that pushing things. So if you will, there is the group that tried to help Giuliani stabilize the state of Syria, which include the US, the moderate Arab countries, and Turkey, which play here kind of love and hate game. They have their own interests. So sometimes they're supporting Giuliani, in other places they like stealing horses when it comes to the border at the north, at the east north part of Syria, in front of the Kurds. And there is group that try to stabilize Syria and create crack within the region, like the Iranian. The two IDF operation against group of terrorists in Syria were against terrorists that come from the Bedouin tribe, encouraged, support, and fed by the Iranian to challenge Israel, to create tensions between the communities and the tribe within Syria. We're speaking about the south part of Syria that divided to three main regions: Medina Tel Quneitra, the region of Quneitra that mainly speaks about the area close to the border between Israel and Syria, divide between the Israel Golan Heights and the Syrian Golan Heights. Medinat El Dara, which is the south part of Syria that connect to Israel and Jordan. By the way, it's the biblical land of the Bashan. So if you go to the Bible, the Bashan, this is this place. And the third region is Medinat El Sweida, or Horan, if you go again to the Bible. At the area of Quneitra, there is minority of Sunna and most of the group of other minority, Cherokee and other. So it's pretty easy to stabilize the region. When it comes to the area of Dara, it's a huge region that used to contain around 1 million people, a little bit more than 1 million people. I don't know the exact number today because some of them were withdrawn and are refugees in Jordan. Nobody know to tell how many came back. So let's say around 1 million people. The majority are Sunna. Some of them are radical Sunna, which are part of Tahrir al-Sham, Jabhat al-Nusra, all those groups that were supported the ideas of Al-Qaeda and then ISIS, to remind ourselves that the revolution, the civil war in Syria started or initiated in this area 15 years ago against Assad. They are pretty radical, deter, but they have a lot of groups that have kind of love and hate relations with the Giuliani forces. So when I mentioned opposition within the coalition, part of them are located in this area. The area of Horan, Sweida, contain around a little bit less than, let's say, 500,000 people. The majority are Druze. It used to be called the lands of the Druze or Jabal Druze, the mountain of Druze. Over the years, they used to be the one that dominate the culture in this place, on the main cities and towns. And to remind ourselves, they had very tight, strong relation with Assad that were part of the Alawis all over the years. So it's quite funny. The Druze are divided between Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. When I'm saying divided, you can find families that one brothers live in Syria, the other in Israel, and the third one in Lebanon. And they had friction between the communities, between the families over the years, because the Druze that lives in Israel are part of the society. They are citizens of Israel. They're serving in the IDF. The 100% part of Israel, while the one that lives in Syria used to support Assad, that were against Israel. And they had no relation with Israel, no whatsoever. And today, because of this friction and because of our obligation to the Druze communities in Israel, we are doing as much as we can to support them. Speaking about the situation in Sweida, the all new friction initiate because of a row that launched by a group of Bedouins against Druze on this road that connect between Sweida and Damascus. The Druze respond by attacking the Bedouins, and the Bedouins respond by attacking the main cities and towns at the Sweida region. I would say that both in that time, the Iranian and the Giuliani regime used the Bedouins to create those kind of frictions. So for the Iranian itself, to unstabilize the whole situation in Syria and maybe create a situation that it can move back to their influence in Syria and bring back the Shia militia into those areas. For Giuliani regime, it was an opportunity to say, okay, we'll come to protect you, Druze, against those Bedouins, and sending our army into the area of Sweida, and by that, take control. And the Druze that wasn't 100% in control before, they have some kind of level of autonomy. and Giuliani want to make sure that he nail it. He is take the Druze 100% under his control. The attempt of Giuliani to do so been blocked mainly by Israel. Israel had to respond to help the Druze, and not only to help the Druze, to keep our strategic goal in this region, which is very simple. The strategic goals of Israel in this region is, generally speaking, to create stable and secure border and peaceful border between Israel and Syria. To do so, we have to make sure that we are launching three main efforts. One is to demilitarization of those three regions, the region of Quneitra, the region of Sweida, and the region of Dara, and not allowing any group of terror to grow there and create kind of force that could threat Israel. Prevent the Syrian army from getting down to Damascus and threat Israel. To remind ourselves that Israel launched very massive attack at the same week that Giuliani took over at Damascus, destroyed what remained from the Assad army, the Air Force, and the most of the Navy and the ground forces. We didn't destroy everything, but we destroyed a significant part of the essence of this old military of Assad. And we don't want Giuliani to move down to Damascus. We also wanted those two efforts to prevent Turkey from getting close to the border between Israel and Syria. And the last thing we want to do is protect the Druze, for the reason that's been mentioned, to pay our obligation to the Druze people that lives in Israel, our brothers, and to make sure that those community could be kind of clean areas from radical Islam that could build themselves and threat Israel at the future. Giuliani, as I mentioned, used the Druze, the Bedouin, in many ways. And those Bedouin tribes that spread all over the south part of Syria are, I don't have another nice word to say, a bunch of criminals. They mainly deal with smuggling drugs, ammunition. They were part of the source of the Iranian to smuggle ammunition into Syria, and from Syria to Lebanon and into Judea and Samaria through Jordan. So they've been paid, and they have relation with the Iranian for years, and now they have some kind of relation with Giuliani forces, while Giuliani at the same time tried to rebuild his Syrian army, which is different, as I mentioned. It's no longer an Arab army, but Muslim army, which means, by the way, that every young recruiter that serve in this army have to learn the Islam, have to follow the Sharia, and you have from the very beginning with very basic training, 6 weeks of study the Sharia, the Islam rules. It's different kind of force. So I'm going back to the friction in Sweida. Israel prevent Giuliani from getting involved and help the Druze a bit with fighting against the Bedouins. Giuliani got the messer, was rolled back to Damascus, and then the American envoy, Barak, created kind of ceasefire agreement in Sweden. The ceasefire agreement is mainly between the Druze, Giuliani forces, and Israel. We accepted it, forced to accept it by the American, by the way. While the Bedouins are not really part of the ceasefire agreement, and since the agreement been signed, yes, the Giuliani forces withdrew back to Damascus, but the Bedouins keep fighting. And the last several days, there is a very high level friction between the Druze and the Bedouins, and it's very complicated to calm things down because we're speaking about small groups, and on top of that, other group of radical Islamists from the area of Dara, all those Jihadiyya, Islamiyya, Salafiyya, Jihadiyya, and those kind of group came to help the Bedouins from their perspective, from their strategic goals, as one that fight against the secular, against the takfir, against the guys that don't follow the rules of Islam, all those infidels, if you will. And that's the situation right now. Israel, as far as they can, try to stabilize things. Israel, parallel to that, had friction with another phenomenon of Druze within Israel that want to cross the border to Syria and help their brothers. During the last days, over 1,300 Druze crossed the border. Significant part of them already been back. We tried to stabilize things and calm the Druze community within Israel. And so far today, it seems that it start moving to positive direction. The leadership of the Druze convinced the young one from keeping challenging Israel, while Israel promised to do whatever it can to support their brothers and sisters that live in Sweida and other places in Syria. So as far as I understand it, it's not kind of a local temporary friction. It's part of a long friction between two tribes, two agenda, the Muslim, if you will, and the minority. From the perspective of the Muslim, the infidel, from the perspective of them, it's minority. They have all the right to live there and live there for 100 years. And we will see a kind of ongoing friction. To my pray and hope, the level of friction will get down and down, but it's not going to be end tomorrow or today. That's the situation in Syria. Again, Israel, when we're speaking about Julani, we're not blind to what is representing. And when I spoke about the goals of Israel, if you notice, I didn't speak about normalization or peace. I'm not so sure that it's helped the Israel right now, because agreement like that more or less will block or limited our freedom of operation within Syria. And right now, because of the situation, it's not relevant. First of all, Julani have to show that he's in control. And then once he's in control, you can continue to discuss some kind of agreement while he can, promise us to be responsible. Right now, it's not on the table. I'm going from Syria to Gaza. Generally speaking, the fighting continue in Gaza. There is 5 divisions that keep fighting, keep destroying infrastructure, subterranean infrastructure, post of terrorists that located in Gaza. There is kind of a new kind of warfare that developed over the last month. It's called rural area warfare, which is not exactly urban warfare, not exactly subterranean warfare, but fighting within hills of conquer and of what remains from the main cities and towns of Gaza Strip. IDF keep learning, keep developing lessons from the fighting, try to prevent the group of terror from launching kind of guerrilla attack toward our forces. The problem is that the dynamic of the war is in kind of a block. So when brigade are stuck and stand for weeks and months in the same place, they offer themselves as a target for those guerrilla attack. And as you could see, we are suffering from IEDs, RPGs, and sniper attack on a daily basis. And unfortunately, we're losing soldiers. We lost 46 soldiers since we start this maneuver. Not to mention all the wounded soldiers. And this situation is very bad from military perspective. Military must keep the momentum, the dynamic of maneuver. And when the maneuver block and you stop, you create different kind of challenge that more or less similar to what the US suffered from in Iraq or in Afghanistan or in Vietnam. You are standing, and now you're dealing with a group of terrorists that hide, cache within the communities, within the refugees camp, and so far and so on. From the development and the strategy to start build parallel to the fighting is building kind of a clean area at the south part of Gaza Strip, the area that used to be the city of Rafah. Some of it with cooperation with other groups like Abu Shabab group that mentioned before, and with other that will allow us to build kind of a refugee city, if you will, or humanitarian city, and from there create different kind of a situation in Syria, in Gaza in regard to the humanitarian challenges and the things that we're dealing with in people that are not involved in the fighting. When it comes to the negotiation, I must tell you that Israel are more than flexible the last several days. We're moving as flexible as we can to come close to agreement. The three countries that negotiate and put pressure on Hamas are Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. All three of them been forced and encouraged by the U.S. Pressure, while Israel under pressure of the U.S. to move forward. And what we see in Doha the last 2 weeks is very slow kind of movement that both sides are like, do the limit to answer the pressure that the four other countries pull on them without compromise all the strategic goal. The other thing that become a huge challenge is the gap and the friction within the Hamas, between the local military leadership in Hamas Gaza Strip and the one that lives in Turkey and in Qatar and represent the old politic leadership of Hamas, if you will. They are not in agreement, and sometimes things that have been achieved in Doha, Qatar, are not accepted in Gaza Strip, and therefore it's create delays and friction during the negotiation. What in place right now is kind of a temporary ceasefire agreement for 60 days. During the ceasefire agreement, Hamas will release 10 live hostages and 20 bodies of hostages, 30 hostages as a whole. And Israel will release hundreds of terrorists, including hundreds of terrorists that have been arrested during the war from Gaza Strip. And we'll take this time to negotiate a later kind of ceasefire agreement, one that can be accepted on both sides. From the Israeli side, it's create kind of a door that will allow Israel to go back to the fighting after 60 days if nothing when we move toward our strategic goals during the 60 days. And for the Hamas, it's time to rebuild itself, to breathe a bit and rebuild its position. So we can find ourselves either way if we have this ceasefire agreement. And I wish for us to have the ceasefire agreement, the same a word about it in a second. We will release 30 hostages. That mean the whole life, the whole world for the families. And we keep the freedom to go back to fighting in 60 days. From strategically perspective, we'll find ourselves after 60 days more or less at the same situation we are facing right now. Because some of the hostages, 20 of them, will be under the captivity of Hamas. No agreement about long ceasefire. And from that perspective, we'll be in more or less at the same strategic situation. So while Israel are stuck with the strategic goal of the war, for the 30s families that will get either the body of their loved one or the loved one alive back home, that's the whole world. So I'm not blind to the needs of the families. It's significantly important. But from strategic perspective, we have to remember that it's one to lead us to any kind of end of the world kind of situation. And I will end with that. Steve, if you have any question, I'd be more than happy to try to answer.
Yeah, Major General Padan, if we could ask you a number of questions on the various areas you spoke about. I'll start just following the order that you gave us. You shared with us that Hezbollah today is in a weakened state, and potentially it continues to get weaker and weaker. Can you elaborate on that, both vis-a-vis the Lebanese army, in terms of the Israeli movement, in terms of eliminating some of the leadership of Hezbollah, and other areas as well? If you could elaborate on that statement.
So the situation with Hezbollah today is we destroy a significant part of their asset. We didn't destroy it all, but we definitely cut off his head, his leadership. And the new leadership is not that strong and not that charismatic. And they find hard time to lead the organization. Having said that, you have to remember that the source of living, salaries to those group of terror and the terrorists themselves came from Iran. They have a hard time to deliver this money. So the people are not get paid. They're pissed off. They have no food on the table. They're pissed off at their own leadership. Why you not provide us the salaries? The leadership doesn't have answers. So there is a development of friction within Hezbollah. Hezbollah, while he's struggling with trying to rebuild itself, is under a lot of pressure. But the new government of Lebanon and the new president of Lebanon, that used to be the chief of staff of the army of Lebanon, is a tough guy. And although he's representing minority that now close to be strong as Hezbollah, under this circumstance, under this context, he feels strong enough with the support of Israel and the US to push Hezbollah. So Hezbollah under a lot of pressure within Lebanon. They don't get the support of the Iranian like they used to get it. And Israel keep, cutting head and destroying facility and prevent them from rebuilding themselves. Those three components put Hezbollah in very, very complicated situation. I don't remember context like that, a situation like that in the last 30 years.
General Padan, is the numbers we're hearing is that there are 60,000, not necessarily Radvan, but 60,000 members of Hezbollah who have had military training. Is that accurate or is that exaggerated?
No, even more.
Even more.
I mean, we have to remember when we're speaking about training, there is different level of training. In Hezbollah, there is like active soldiers that have like real military training and they are real terrorists. And there is like local militia that are doing kind of civilian job, civil jobs on a daily basis. They get like basic training, and in time of war, they give them weapon and they're part of the defense of their own village or do like very simple logistic things. So when we're speaking about training, we're not speaking about those numbers when it comes to real terrorists that can really lead fight. So the numbers are greater than that, but it's not represent the real force of Hezbollah.
If we could go over to Syria, you shared with us that Sweida, which is a majority of Druze population, it's the equivalent of the biblical Haran, the land that Abraham and Sarah lived before coming to Israel. From a point of view of a number of kilometers, how far is the city of Sweida, the heart of Sweida, from the Golan Heights, from the Israeli border?
Oh, pretty close. It's an hour drive, less than an hour drive. We're speaking about places that are very close to the border of Israel, that from military perspective, if there would be the group of terrorists, very quickly they can reach the border between Israel and Syria.
The majority of Sweida, as you said, are Druze, but these Bedouin tribes, the ones that are involved in drug smuggling and arms smuggling into Lebanon, into Jordan, they make up 20-30% of the population of that area?
Yeah, and they're Sunna. By the way, generally speaking, if you look at the history of those tribes, they're not that religious. If you read book of British archaeologists and doctors that come to do researches during the between wars, they declare that the Bedouins are not Muslims because they have no mosque, they are not praying. Over the last several years, because of the phenomena of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, significant part of them came closer to the Islam and become kind of Salafiyya Jihadiyya kind of groups. But really, it's from their perspective, it's more about money, freedom of smuggling, controlling the path of smuggling, and so. And therefore, they want their freedom from one hand to keep their source of living, smuggling, and they want to show the Julani regime and other group like the Iranian that they are fighting on behalf of Islam, so they keep feeding them with ammunition, with money and stuff. So part of their fight is for their own come from their own agenda, and the other is to satisfy the powers that supporting them, Julani forces and Iran in that case.
So you're saying it's not that they have this historically deep-seated hatred towards the Druze, viewing them as infidels. It's much more about business and manipulation in terms of that.
As I mentioned, over the years, there wasn't that kind of religious phenomena within the Bedouin tribes, and they live very peacefully with the Druze under Assad all over the years. Here and there, friction because of families issues and robes and steals and criminal things. They are criminals, no doubt about it. But there were no religious fight between them. And nowadays, they use the religious to fight their own criminal goals. And again, as I mentioned, to satisfy the group that feed them, the Iranian and Julani.
The reports that we're getting, horrific atrocities, in terms of brutally raping young girls, Druze girls, in terms of humiliation of Druze. Is that coming primarily from the Bedouins, or did that come from some of these Islamist tribes, jihadist tribes that came in to join the Bedouins, the Syrian army, which is jihadist, that came in to join the Bedouins? Is it coming from both? Is it coming from one group or the other?
So it comes from both, as far as I understand it. And again, there is no surprise here. The one that Noah, our neighbor, wasn't surprised on October the 7th when we saw the atrocity in Gaza envelope. And the same kind of culture, the same kind of value been faced in Sweida area. It's for them to rob, to murder, to butcher, to rape is not a huge crime.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, this is our neighbor.
Historically, have the Druze, well, under the Ottomans, the Druze, I assume, were protected and not persecuted. But historically, have the Druze been persecuted in the area of Syria?
So over the years, there were here and there, like local events, but significant. That generally speaking, no, they lived peacefully under the Ba'ath idea of become part of the Arab country. Again, not a Muslim country, Arab country, that generally saying that every community, every tribe that speaks Arabic is part of it, and they were part of it. They served in Assad army. They were part of the regime. They were parliament member from the Druze community and so far and so on. They were part of the Syrian Ba'ath country. So here and there were like local friction, but generally speaking, that they live peacefully within this patchwork that created in Syria.
All along, you've been telling us, number one, who Ashara is, who al-Juliani is. You've also been saying all along that right now, because there's so many different competing groups in Syria, he really doesn't have control of his own country. And what you shared with us earlier is he used this, so to speak, as an excuse to try to get in his military and take control of that area of Sweida. And what this agreement that seems to be fragile agreement at this point, is that he's backed off and taken Syrian troops out of Sweida. And right now it's back to the tension between the Bedouins and the Druze. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And again, I'll take it to another perspective of the way that the White House and the U.S. look at this situation. The U.S. have interest that Giuliani will be able to stabilize Syria, which is acceptable. But sometimes they don't understand the complicity. So you could see that while they push Giuliani to have ceasefire and doing that, create kind of a real ceasefire and peaceful in Sweida area, it's led to nowhere. And they criticize Israel from stop getting involved. And I would say that I think that Giuliani will go back to the American, to Barack, the envoy to Syria, and will tell him, look, it doesn't work. If you want to have stability and peace in the area of Sweida and help me stabilize the land, let me go back and fix things and take over. Because I have to defend the Druze from the Bedouins and the tribes over there. It's an ongoing war right now, and we'll see what's going to happen the next few days. I can assure you that the source, the cornerstone of this war and this friction won't be vanished. So even though if we'll have like a temporary ceasefire for a few days, I cannot promise that that's going to be the situation next week.
In a perfect world, which that doesn't exist, would, from an Israel's point of view, from America's point of view, would the perfect scenario be that we are able to provide arms so that the Druze can defend themselves against the Bedouins and jihadists who are attempting to annihilate them or attempting to kill them and torture them? Would that be the perfect world?
So you speak about the Israeli interest. The Israeli interest is to have relation with the Druze and to have ally close to our border at the south part of Syria, to be able to achieve what I've just mentioned, the militarization of this area, the preventing Assad forces and other radical groups from being there. From the perspective of Syria, all the tribes have equal rights, and each one of them have to have his own kind of independency, vis-a-vis culture independency and way of living. And from that perspective, the Syrians have to create some kind of balance between the tribe that will allow them to rebuild, or reconnect between all the patches and go back to the patchwork that created Syria in the past. So there is different interest here. Israel definitely wants the Druze to be the strong force in this area, and Giuliani want to be the one that control things.
And then if we could just pivot for a couple of minutes to FIDF, and also like to have your insight into this, Major General Padan, about two programs that are happening right now. We have almost 500 orphans and younger siblings who've lost a brother, lost a sister at war, in various programs here in the United States. We call it the legacy camps. For the younger kids, they participate in a Jewish camp, then spend a week with a community. For the older kids, it's almost like a USY on wheels. It's a traveling camp where they travel throughout part of the country, spending weekends with communities, spending significant time besides touring, but getting to meet the FIDF donors. And we've said this many times, that the goal of this program is that they create a network amongst themselves, that each and every one of these kids who feels to a certain degree isolated, where people don't really appreciate what they're going through this intense experience, they will now have a network, hopefully, for life. And we're looking for support for this. It's not a cheap program, a very significant program in terms of costs, but an incredibly powerful program in which both the IDF and the Ministry of Defense, their casualty departments, are asking us to do this for over the next 6 years. This summer, like we said, we believe the number is slightly over 500 participants. The second area that we are looking for significant support for, and Major General Padan, please, if you can elaborate upon that, is that the support we give to the regular soldiers, those who are coming from financially challenged backgrounds, those from the various degrees of poverty, we're being asked now to fund for the reservists. There literally are in excess of 100,000 reservists serving in multiple branches of the Army. Those on the, so to speak, in the combat component of it are there in the Jordan Valley, in Judea, Samaria, on the Syrian border, and we've just heard about the challenge of the Syrian border as well as the Lebanon border. And Major General Padan, this is a major ask, a significant ask coming from the Army. If you could elaborate to us upon the challenges that reservists are dealing with, financially, family-wise, and otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, as you can imagine, because of the situation in Israel, the whole economy of Israel is kind of under challenge. And that includes the reservists that serve for hundreds of days, some of them 300 days, some of them 400 days and more. Some of them just started their life, they lost their work, they lost their ability to produce. Others suffering from injuries, mental injuries and physical injuries. So there is a lot of needs when it comes to reservists that find himself after serving for us for 400 days and struggling to go back to life and the families and so on. The issue is that over the years we created a very stable, strong system that's supporting the active soldier. We know how to do it from bureaucracy point of view, from create priorities, and so. When it comes to reservists, it's a little bit more complicated because we're speaking about civilians that are going back and forth. They are serving while they're in reserve under the title active soldier, and then the day after, they are civilian. And we are in kind of process because of the needs, the greatest needs in Israel right now, to create equivalent system for reservists with the MOD and the IDF that will allow us to support them with all those challenges, with helping them back to life, with supporting their mental needs, their physical needs, and so that's include, by the way, house for the reservists. That will be a platform that on it the leader of the reservists could launch their support and be a place that every reservist could reach to when it needed it. When he needed it. So
are you referring to
developing this house? We're developing a lot of system right now with the MOD, and as far as I believe, will be pretty fast with offering the FIDF new bunch of program that will elaborate and speak to those kind of challenges. The first one that starts running is the adopting a brigade. Over the years, we adopted only active service units, and now we start to adopt reservist unit that will allow the commander of the unit deal with what we call the gray zone, Tchum 4, and support the needs of those reservists. They need the same kind of support that the active soldier needs. So we are in a process. One program behind us, it's the adopting reservist unit, adopting brigade. And there is a few more that will solve the bureaucracy of them, and the system will be created in the near future.
Thank you. And going forward, as you said, because things are very unstable in Syria, there's still challenges in Lebanon. There are going to be challenges on the Jordan border with the weapons coming in. Unfortunately for the reservists, it doesn't look like they're going to be spending 52 weeks a year at home with their wife and children. And there's going to be huge financial needs, huge educational needs, and huge emotional support needs that we're being asked to fund.
And we're going to be there for them. That's our job. While they sacrifice their life for Israel and therefore for the Jewish people, we are there to hold their back and make sure that they got everything they need to move forward. So with your amazing help and support, we're there for them all over the world, and we'll be them in the future. with great program that really makes a difference. So I'm taking the opportunity and speak on behalf of the reservists and the soldiers and say thank you all for your support and everything you did and do for us to be able to launch those kind of programs, those kind of support to the very urgent needs of Israel.
Thank you. And to all those who are supporting the soldiers and caring for them, we want to thank you and wish you a very, very meaningful week.